Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio. I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. And when I started this show in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women-owned businesses and help women succeed by providing resources and valuable tips from other women and men, small business owners. In each interview, my guests speak openly about their triumphs, the scary times, and tough decisions they had to make along the way. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strengths to achieve success on their own terms. Hi everyone, welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio, and I'm really glad you could join us today. And this is Deborah Bailey, and my co-host Kerry Heaps has joined me again today for this show about speaking. So I think you will learn a lot from it. So, just kind of relax, and if you want to take some notes, that's great too. If you're listening to this on Podomatic, dbcoach.podomatic.com, or you can go to iTunes if you're not listening from there already. And if you are on iTunes, please make sure that you share a review if you're enjoying what you're hearing, because that helps the algorithms going on in the back to help to share the show with more listeners. So that is always appreciated. And of course, you can leave comments on the blog, womenentrepreneursecrets.com, or on Podomatic, or you just reach out to either us or both. That's great too. There's many ways for you to leave feedback about what you have heard. So I will hope you will consider doing that. And again, you can find links for the show, womenentrepreneursecrets.com. Under the radio tab on the menu, we'll have links for the different platforms where you can find the show, and some of the older shows are on lives, and they're being moved there a little bit at a time every month. So if there's other shows that happened before that you may have seen on the blog or something, we'll be adding the select shows as I go. So this is a place for you to bookmark and check back to see what is up there this month. So I will introduce my co-host, Kerry Heaps, and she's the founder and publisher of Strictly Marketing Magazine. She's also the host of Strictly Marketing Talk Radio. The magazine has recently spun off an online community for women and men too, looking to gain more media exposure, pitched like a bitch media. She owns Knockout Marketing, a business-to-business telemarketing and lead generation firm. Her passion is to help other entrepreneurs with their marketing efforts to continue their dream of running a successful business. And you can find Kerry www.strictlymarketingmagazine.com. So welcome back to the show, Kerry.
Thank you, Deb. It's always a pleasure to co-host with you, and this is a hot topic.
Yes, it is. It really is. I've been hearing about speaking since my coach training days, which is quite a while ago, and hearing about speaking, I was like, oh my God, I have to do that. And just at first, the thought of it was really a little scary, and it is something that scares a lot of people. But it shouldn't really be the scary thing that I think supposedly, people would rather not speak in front of people, but it doesn't have to be that scary. So I'm going to, let you share your thoughts about, or your initial thoughts about, about speaking. Why do you feel that this is really something that's really a powerful way to get out here and connect with people?
Well, as you and I have talked, I'm in the process of getting back on the speaking circuit myself after being absent for quite some time. And even for me, having to re-enter that, it is a little bit scary. There is a fear there for people. And I think it trickles back to the media portion of what people should be doing for their businesses, getting interviewed, writing articles. And I think it's that fear of rejection, fear of somebody's not going to agree with me. Somebody is going to call my bluff, or I'm afraid somebody's going to challenge me. So there's always that fear. And Is there a magical formula to get over that? I wish there was. The best advice I can give out to anybody is just do it. Just like go out and buy a pair of Nike tennis shoes and follow their logo. Just do it. Just get yourself out there, because I think once you get started, you really enjoy it, because it gives you that opportunity to showcase what you're an expert on, just like media interviews. And we run into the same thing with media interviews with what we're doing with Pitch Like a Bitch. A lot of people want that exposure, but they don't actually want to have to do the talking. They don't want to have to, they want to be the expert, but they don't want to show you that they're the expert, So I think fear plays a big factor into that. And then two, I think you also, again, this has been another huge opportunity for what we like to call gurus, to really take advantage of and really lead people down the wrong path. I had brought up to you about a person that we had spoken about who has a speaking package that's well over 30 grand to teach people how to speak for a living. And I think, get a directory, go to Toastmasters, sign up for some public speaking classes if you're feeling insecure, and you're an expert in your industry. Nobody's going to be able to teach you that. If you don't already know it, then you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. So I think there's still, again, it's a field, there's a lot of misconceptions about people want to tell you how to do it, but they don't want to show you how they put the wheels in motion. They want to say, here, buy these wheels, but they don't want to tell you where to put them on the car.
That's a good way to put it.
It's true. It's true. I mean.
Yeah, I agree.
Look at my wheels. Aren't they great?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think that's so true. I think when I started, I'm trying to think what I started doing. I think somebody who I connected with, a women's organization had told me about an association was having an event and wanted someone to come and speak, and she wasn't able to do it, but she'd done it before, and it was a free thing. It was not far from my house, and I, put together some things, and I think I was still working on my book at the time, if I remember. So I had something to go on. It was very interactive. I wasn't just, sitting there speaking. I was interacting with people and going over things. And it's that's what I prefer. So it really wasn't so bad, for me to do that. I didn't really feel so uncomfortable. But then I'd also been in front of people, like, in school when I was in the band, performing or doing plays. So I think in a way, just being in front of people wasn't quite unnerving, to me, because I've done that in different ways over the years. And then in corporate also, sometimes I, had had to show people go through documentation with people about something or other, and you may be, in front of people or in a meeting, and you're leading this and all that. So, that in itself wasn't so bad, but I think there was a point as a coach, when I was doing more coaching at that time, where I just kind of felt like, oh my goodness, now I'm going to have to do this, because there's so much emphasis on speaking. But like you said, they don't really tell you how to go about it, how do you put this together, and what do you know to talk about, and how to present yourself, and what's your objective even? Are you just talking to talk? Are you talking to sign people up to something? Are you talking to sell something? It's easy to get lost, isn't it? If you don't know why you're doing it.
Well, I think it's, a couple of basic things, and it follows back to what I've said before with media. You have to be clear on your message. What are you an expert on? And I'm sorry, I don't care who signs up with you or what program, super duper program you buy. Nobody's going to be able to determine that but you. If you're an accountant and that you're an expert on CFO services or QuickBooks, and you can show anybody how to, turn how to save money, how to, create a winning system that's going to be easy for them to use throughout the year. that will integrate easily with their taxes and with what their accountant does, then that's what you're an expert on. If, and the easiest way to figure that out is what do most people come to you for advice for? In your industry? Are they coming to you because, they want to lose weight and they know that what are the best things I can do? Whatever it is that they're asking for, that will give you topic ideas right there. And once you get started, you start writing down those ideas, you'll have an infinite number of things you can talk about, that you can add value to the people that you're speaking to. And even sometimes people will want you to come and speak just because they want to hear your story. The story of Deb, the story of Kerry, the story, they want to hear that story about how you got started, and again, nobody can come up with that. Nobody can make that up. That's right. You have to tell that story. So it's finding what message it is, and what's your goal with it? I mean, are you wanting to just kind of raise awareness for your business and do maybe one speaking engagement a month, which would be great, or do you want to do it professionally and earn a living potentially and move up to that? You have to figure out what your goals are. I'm primarily getting back into it to build the brand for the magazine, for the book, Pitch Like a Bitch, and just that brand awareness. But I've also made the decision to not speak anywhere for free unless it's something that will benefit us on the back end tremendously. And we'll go into that too. But you have to kind of figure out what is it that I'm willing to do? How far am I willing to move my tree, per se, or bend my tree of what you're going to do? But, you just have to figure out what it is that you're going to talk about. And then it's a process. Once you have all that down, then you want to start contacting, different associations, different groups. Hey, I'd love to come in and speak. If you're going to charge for this, what price point it's going to be? Do you want to go in and just speak to companies? Figure out what your price point's going to be, who's going to be the target audience, so you can figure out, is it going to be better for you to speak at an expo, a convention, a networking group, or at a company? And then you can market from there, figure out the plan from there. So you have to put some thought into it. I've seen people who speak that don't do a PowerPoint. They speak from the heart. And they're some of the best speakers, some of the best speeches you've heard. And then you have other people who are so prepared. It's like they've got the PowerPoint going. They've got, they've spent tons of times researching, and there's, data and different, and they have an accompanying book with it to give to you. And even though it is good information, it's overload. So I think everybody's different. I'm more of I like to crack jokes. I like to keep things light. That doesn't always work in some environments. And I know that. So you just have to kind of, and you figure those things, you're not going to know until you move along and get into it more. Because I think that's what people are afraid of. I'm afraid that I'm going to go up there and I'm just going to hear crickets. Well, you might. But I think, and you could probably attest to this, I think when you're in front of an audience, you can read their reaction. You can feel the temperature of the room. And if you need to lighten it up a bit, then that's what you can do. And again, it's being keen to the audience. And it's taking the focus off of you and tune into what their body language is.
Yes. I agree.
So I think there's a lot of different things that factor into it. But starting out, you got to figure out a couple of topics where you're the expert.
Yeah, I totally agree, because in that way, at least you'll have an idea of your starting point, and also what it is you're looking to achieve. Because when I did my book, Think Like an Entrepreneur, I had something then, so when I got interviews and things, I had talking points. I had all that together. I did initially some online things with some women organizations, like Ladies Who Launch and Downtown Women's Club, which I don't even believe are even existing right now. But at the time, it was more teleclasses, as they were called, where you were on the phone with people, and in some cases, webinar situations at that time. When we're going over slides, maybe you're on the phone going over your points. And that was a way, that I was using at that time to kind of, connect with other people or try to get clients or whatever. And just kind of getting a feel for how should I present myself. So when you're starting, you may not really know. You may have to kind of get your style together and what it is that you're presenting, what you're selling, what you want to say. It's going to take some trial and error. I think you can't just burst out there and be at the top of anything. So, it can be nerve-wracking if you haven't done it before, you're not really sure, and then you don't know how people are responding. But what I do find is doing training seems to be a way I like to do it. I've had some opportunities to do training in like writing communications and things, at companies and at the library. And then I was doing some things with social media for business and self-publishing. So talking, about things that I knew and liked to talk about and know about, and I could share information with you, is a way that I enjoy doing it, because it's not so much that I'm kind of talking off the cuff, let's say, or about anything. It depends on the speaker, what they're there for. But I find it, how I look at it is training or teaching. Then I get a comfort level around that, because now I'm sharing with you and I can answer your questions and I can let you know things and maybe can help you, whatever it is that we're talking about. And that helps me to be, I guess I feel more at ease. So those are the kind of opportunities that I look for. Because that's what I feel more comfortable doing. But it took me a while to identify that. I didn't start out of the gate saying that's what I'm doing, but it kind of turned out when I look at the ones that I like the best, that's what I was doing. But then when I've done things, when I've been in front of, like, let's say consumers, like, a women's organization, just kind of talking about motivation or talking about this or that, that wasn't bad, but I just had a different feeling about it. And then, like I said, what's your objective? I remember having a mailing list and not having people sign up. I mean, they were very receptive. So it's not like they were like, oh, who is this woman? We don't like her. But, they weren't business people. So in that time anyway, people were kind of, stingy with their emails because they didn't know what they were going to get in return. And why am I giving up an email where now maybe you would share your Facebook page. Maybe they'd be more likely to friend you or fan you now, where back then, they weren't really sure. Why should I do that? A newsletter? What's that? It was kind of like, it wasn't something where maybe a business person may have said, oh, she's going to send me a newsletter, or maybe I'm going to free something. So they may have been more likely to give up that email. It was a different kind of audience. So it was a different reaction.
Yeah, and I think, doing more of a training, looking at it from a training point of view or a teaching point of view is a good way to look at it, because that is, in a sense, what you're doing when you're speaking.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's you want to speak, you still want to be interactive, I think, to a certain extent, if you can. And, you really need to be able to connect with them, because I think there's a difference between speaking to someone and speaking at them. You don't want to make that mistake.
That's true. That's a good point, because everybody doesn't know the difference between the two. Everybody doesn't know the difference between the two. And
I would also point out too, Deb, you could go speak to a group of people. It could be 50 people. Maybe it's a chamber event or something. I don't know. Not every one of those people are going to like what you have to say.
True.
So, don't make the assumption that, if everybody's clapping, there still could be, and I've had that happen, to me where, I had one or two people who, on the feedback form, it was like, well, I didn't like this and I didn't like that. And I mean, they wouldn't have been happy no matter what, but logistically, not everybody's going to be on board with what you're talking about.
Sure.
They could disagree with a small part of it. They could disagree with a lot of it. And I think that's where that fear comes in. And I think if you speak enough, you will have, people who are going to be boisterous about it. But I think you have to kind of just be prepared. But that, and again, I think it just goes back to, you just have to do it. You just have to get over yourself and just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is too, I think, if you do have people who don't like you, in a way you're doing something right, because if everybody's in agreement with what you're doing, maybe you're not delivering your best. You might want to look at that. Because it's not everybody's going to agree with it. Not everybody's going to like it. Not everybody's going to find your content useful for whatever reason. So you do want a balance of some people who don't like what you're doing. Now, I'm not saying that should be your goal, but, just know that you've got to have that balance. So there's going to be, and just accept that that's part of it.
True. That's true. And I think for a lot of people, that probably is the real scary part. It is,
but that could happen without you speaking. You could hire a client that turns into such a nightmare, that really causes a lot of problems for you. Whereas if you would have spoken at an event and met them there and they voice, it's better for them to hear it from you from a speaking platform than rather becoming a client and hearing it later.
Right.
So it's also, you could kind of look at it, it's a way to pre-qualify your future clientele.
That's a good point too.
Weed out the weeds. Yeah.
That's true. So yeah, you really have to look at these opportunities, I guess, in a way that says, okay, is this the right thing for me to do, and what is my objective? From this, if you're doing it to get clients or get in front of potential clients, or you getting in there to sell something in particular. I think that for me, I was able to sell books, and I, kind of made notes about this before we started, about making assumptions. I've done workshops with Dress for Success. I was doing it in Jersey City, and I was doing entrepreneurship and that kind of thing. It was interesting because so a lot of the women there in that particular times I had been women who were going back to school. Maybe they had their kids already, maybe they didn't have kids, maybe they lost a job or had a bad divorce and now they were starting over in their life. And where some people, I think, make assumptions is what they think you are. If you're, I guess, reclaiming or recapturing your life and starting over at a certain point, some people may go, well, these people, they get free suits, they must be this or that. They were just like anybody else who just, maybe went through a bad time. And now most of them were either trying to get a business going back to school, getting advanced degrees, really very savvy, very, I didn't have to try to convince them anything. They were right there with me, and very interactive, very enthusiastic. I brought my book. I sold a few copies. I brought some other books I had, because get books people, authors, and I'm sure it happens with you too, Kerry, will give me books. They're going to be on the show. Very enthusiastic, terrific audience. But then I'd also gone to like a women's organization that I used to belong to here in New Jersey. And they were kind of like, nobody wanted to buy anything. Ladies like, oh, I'll take a postcard of advertising my book. But I guess my point of all this is, don't assume, oh, I'm talking to this crowd. They don't have money. They don't have this. They don't have that. And then, over here, I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to make all these sales. Don't ever assume who you're dealing with, because you don't know. It may not be the way you think. It may not turn out the way you believe. So if you're going in there and you're ready to share what you know, don't assume anything about who these folks are, where their mentality is, how you'll be received, or if they'll even take $1 out of their pocket, because it may not be what you think. I've been pleasantly surprised in many instances, and that's taught me a lesson about assumptions. So I think I just want to make that point to all of you. And I think, Kerry, you were talking before about there can be opportunities in also speaking for free.
There can be, and you just have to kind of look at each engagement and weigh the pros and cons. For example, and I told you about this, Deb, where I had the opportunity. I applied to speak at an event. It's an expo and fairly large health and wellness arena. And they weren't paying us to speak. They would pay our travel arrangements. They would pay for that, but there was no speaker's fee. But what you got in return was some free advertising. You also got a list of all 400 attendees. You got the list of the vendors with all of their contact information as well. So you walked out of there you did a presentation for those people. They know you. You have their information. So you are able to go and market to them. So what I did, I knew, it would have been perfect for my media services, because these are people who need to showcase their expertise. And what I was going to do was actually use the list and contact each one of them and let them know, you did hear me speak at, whatever event, and just kind of introduce myself and let them know, hey, we're doing a special this month for people who went to the expo, like 10% off or something like that, our media training. So that would have been very beneficial for me to do it that way. Now, there were a few that I saw. I didn't apply to them, but they wanted you to speak for free, and they wanted you to travel halfway across the world and pay your own way to come and speak there for free. Clearly, that was, I'm like, there's no way I'm doing that. So you have to kind of weigh each opportunity. If it's a local chamber event and, you're going to be able to speak for free, and that that's like your target audience, or let's just say you have not recorded yourself speaking yet, to have like a clip to send to people, that might be a good opportunity. Hey, I'll speak for free, but I'm going to need to record it. I'm going to have someone there videotaping it. Will that be okay with you? So that way you have the start of something that you can send to companies if they ask for something where you've spoken at an event. That way they can see your style and so forth. So there's pros and cons to that. We both have spoken at the libraries, and I've actually gotten business out of that, and I think you have too. And sometimes they pay, sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. It's not a whole lot of money, but they do value their speakers' time, so that's a great way for you to get in there and, again, have an audience, potential clients, and, they may even let you record there. So the more you can build up that resume, that speaking resume, the better, because there's going to be some people who are looking for speakers that they're going to be paying high dollar, but they want to see you in action. They want to see, your style. They want to see a speaking reel or a clip or whatever. And if you don't have that to show, they're not going to consider you.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Deborah. Not only am I host of Women Entrepreneurs Radio, but I'm also a writer and coach. I've learned that making professional changes calls for a change in mindset, and that's not always easy to do. In my book, Think Like an Entrepreneur, Transforming Your Career and Taking Charge of Your Life, you'll learn the 5 steps to thinking like an entrepreneur so that you can move from idea to action. You'll also get information on how to manage fear of failure and how to banish self-doubt. And you'll receive lots of motivation to pick you up and point you in the right direction when you're facing the emotional and mental challenges that come with making life changes. In fact, one reviewer said, the book gave me ideas to match with my own feelings. This book is clear, straightforward. All tips are really good and easy to apply. I couldn't agree more. So get your copy today of Think Like an Entrepreneur, Transforming Your Career and Taking Charge of Your Life. It's available in print, ebook, and audiobook on Amazon.com.
If you're picking opportunities, I think kind of look at your objective and what you want to use it for. Is this a stepping stone to something else? I remember years ago talking to an entrepreneur who was taking, she was prepared to take these free things and travel. I don't know if they're paying for the travel. It seemed to me like they may not have. I'm not sure what they're paying, but that was what she decided to do. She was a coach at the time. That was her, she, decided that's how she was going to go about it. And, I had also talked to some other organizations and a couple contacted me from across the country. And they were like, oh, we don't have a budget. Well, that's nice, but that's not going to help me. I'm not going to pay to travel across the country and just to speak to you for your lunch and learn. I mean, I don't have it like that. Even if I did, what's the value in this for me to do that? So I think that's something else also to note, that sometimes organizations kind of make assumptions that you'll just come and speak for nothing, but they're not really giving up anything.
Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a lot of people that are doing that. Either they don't have experience in booking, that job was just thrown in their lap and they have no clue what they're doing. And then I think some of them will actually see, and I've had that happen before too, where I've applied to speak at events that I know some of the speakers that have spoken in the past were paid, and I know exactly how much they were paid, that their travel was covered, and they wanted me to come and speak, and I think this was in Atlanta, and they were like, oh, we don't have a budget for speakers. And I knew that was a lie. So some of them will do it too, just to see if they can, because that's event planning, the bigger expos sometimes too, if it's not a company sponsored expo, they're trying to cut corners as much as they can. Because that generates more revenue. So if they can get someone to come and speak for free, they're not going to volunteer to pay them.
Right.
Because it is a business, unfortunately, and it's not always the most honest one, but, you have to kind of consider that too. And what someone had shared with me one time is she said, what you want to do is ask them, do you have a budget for speakers? And that way, if it gives you kind of an idea, well, yeah, we're going to be paying them, but it's $200, or we can only pay, $300, or yeah, it's going to be anywhere between $700 to $1,000. So you have an idea of what and then you can kind of say, okay, well, if that's what they're paying, or, and if they're going to be willing to, include your travel expenses, you want to make sure that you're including everything. But always asking is a good thing, because, if it's cross country, they're not paying anything, it wouldn't be worth your time. You're basically paying out of pocket. It would have to be, again, extremely worth your time to go and speak at that event.
Exactly. Something that this is going to be really beneficial for me to do, like really beneficial. And then you could weigh the pros and cons for it. But, if you're looking at these things and deciding what your worth is, you as you go along and you get more confidence and more, I guess, of a resume, you're in your rights to kind of say, well, this is how much it is for me to do this, or these are the things I'm charging for. Because I remember, I had connected with someone through someone else that I had known, and she wanted me to talk to her class that she had in the evening at the University of Phoenix. And, she's an educator, but then she was teaching about business, starting a business. And it was in Jersey City, and that's where my mom lived. So I was like, I could do this because I could park by her, blah, blah, I was downtown. And I, did that. It was a couple of hours, and she had like it wasn't a gigantic crowd, but it was like 5 or 6 people, and it was really good thing. I enjoyed it and everything, and she gave me a little, I think it was like a $50 gift card or something, but I kind of just did it as it's like a one-off kind of thing. I wasn't really looking at it as a big thing. But then she was like, oh, that was good, and I'd like you to come back, if you could come back on a Saturday, it was going to be a bigger amount, and all this, and she wanted me to give her estimate. So I did. And I talked to a couple other coaches who were speaking and asked them what they thought. And I didn't even give her the full amount. I didn't say something in the thousands. I said it like a couple hundred, because I would have been there like all day or half a day. I would travel there. I'd have to pay for parking. All of this, gas from where I am. And, her response is, well, that's too much. Believe me, it was nothing near what someone would have charged her who does this all the time. Right. And I was like, wow, I'm thinking to myself, because it was just, to her, it's just like 3 hours. So why should I pay you X? But I'm like, but you're paying for my time, you're paying for my travel. You asked me how much, so I told you. But it was like, and I says, okay, I guess you're not really giving this value.
Well, I think what some of them do think, and again, it goes back to who are you dealing with? Because if it's something that it's been thrown into their lap, a lot of people think that it's a 30-minute talk, and they're thinking, well, you're only really working for 30 minutes. They're not thinking about all the prep work that goes into that, preparing that presentation, driving there. Your time on the road, if it's 3-hour commute. That's time you've lost. You can't do any work in that time frame. So it's, and if it's an overnight stay, that's even more time. So it has to be worth your time. And if they're not okay with that, then, that's too bad. But you have to respect yourself and what you do enough to say, like you said, they're not valuing what you do. And whether it's because they're doing it intentionally or ignorantly, either way, it's still not valuing what you do. So you need to push that off to the side and say, this, clearly it's not a good fit. I wish you well. Hope you find somebody that you're happy with, and you move on. But I think for the most part, you do find that, people are going to try to negotiate with you, of course. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But, when they're thinking in their head, oh, it's only 30 minutes and they're not considering everything that you have to put into this, then it's a problem, And if you think about it, those are also people, if you did go and speak, they're probably, getting paid is going to be, get ready to jump through hoops.
Yeah, that's true.
How they act in the beginning, it's just like a potential client. How they're acting in the beginning gives you a pretty good idea of what they're going to be like to work with and get paid for it and so forth. So,
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you have to really look at the whole picture when you're doing something like that. If you decide I'm going to put my time into it, then, what can I get? What am I going to get out of this? Going to Dress for Success, that was me giving my time and energy because it's a place I'd volunteered at and I believed in it. And, I wasn't going in there thinking I'm going to sell X amount of books. I was going to give my time. So selling the books was extra for me. Actually, but there are times when you're looking at it a little bit more, let's say it's not something you're in effect donating time to or whatever, but it's really a business decision that's like, okay, what am I doing this for? And what am I getting back? Am I getting it back financially? Am I selling something in the back of a room? What is my goal, I guess is what I'm saying. And I don't think we can really look at, say, the idea of live events and use that as a example. I mean, yes, as people go to live events and talk, and they have their own objectives. Maybe they're getting the list or whatever, their objective is, or they're upselling you to something while they have everybody in the room, all excited and everything. But I think you really have to look at it in terms of your own goals, of what you're aiming for. As if you're coaching or doing something like that, and you decide to use this as a way to generate leads or whatever, it's a good idea to know what you're doing and why and what your objective is first. And that way you don't get into situations where maybe you don't want to be doing it for free, or you feel somehow that you're not getting what you need to get out of it or deserve to get out of it. And I'm only saying that because when I started coaching, there was a lot of emphasis on like giving free coaching and speaking, and all was free because you're supposed to be building up your experience. But they never really gave a lot of information as to what to do once you cross that line. Once now you have put it out there and now it's time for you to really start claiming it, what do I do now? They never told you that part. So you're still giving stuff away, but you never know how not to keep giving stuff away.
Well, I think your talk, your speech, or you speaking, is that content that you're pushing out of your mouth is free content. They're listening to it. That's how you're
Mm-hmm.
providing value to them. I think to give them any more free stuff is just getting them on that free hamster wheel that they never get off of, and attracting the wrong type of people. We've even considered, we're looking at pulling all of the free stuff off of our site and reserving it for our clients that pay for our services, and give them here's a bonus gift, just as value-added content, because we're finding it's either, free attracts freeloaders. I've said that before on the show. And I think people need to understand that, you keep giving stuff away for free. Why would anybody sign up?
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Stop
That's
creating
true.
stuff and giving it away for free. We're doing a lot of different things with our marketing now, and that's one of the things that we're getting ready to do, is pull all the free stuff, because it hasn't really attracted anything that's been beneficial. What it's been attracting are the people who are the hardest to work with, who want everything for free. It's really, to me, it's just enough is enough. And if you really want to give something away for free, make that talk so packed full of great content for them to take away that they're taking notes feverishly, and they are going to implement what they hear from you, because that is free content basically for them. Right. You have to kind of look at it that way. And I think the more you can over deliver on that, the better. But, after that, saying, hey, sign up for my free newsletter, I think it's better if you can, let them know, hey, look, if you're allowed to sell the back of the room, or if you're allowed to do something, say, hey, I have copies of my book or my program. It's normally priced for whatever, but today only, because you guys attended this conference, I'm going to give you half off. A really good call to action, so you can sell at the back of the room, or you can, so you're getting immediate sales. And that's where you'll capture their information from them, selling to them, and then you can sell even more. So, enough with the freebies. Your speech is your free gift.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And yet again, like we were talking before about the free, it always seems to kind of touch on that topic. Every time we, are talking about one of these different things. And it's true, because there's just that kind of idea that everything is give, and then nothing wrong with giving. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but people give with the strategy of what, it's marketing. They're marketing to you in giving that thing that they may be giving. It's not just out of the goodness of their heart, or they're finding a way to tie it back to what they're selling to you, in a way that, yes, they're giving and sharing, but they're also leading you to something. You may not realize that, but if they're anything worth their salt, that is exactly what's happening. I mean, it's like with a live event that marketers have. They bring people into the room for an upsell, because they get you all excited, and you're, vibing and all the good stuff, and you're much more likely to buy the next thing. Even if it's thousands of dollars worth of something that you come out later and go, why did I do that? Right. Because you're all in the mood, and you're in that moment, and everybody else is feeling it, and it's all, there's a method there to why they're bringing everybody together for that, to bring people to a level where now you can be upsold to this next coaching thing, or this next product, or this next whatever. I'm not saying that to criticize it. I'm just saying that that's what's done. Right. That's what's done. So it's not, none of it is by accident. It's not by accident. It's not just someone just throwing stuff out there. There's a strategy to all of it. So if you see yourself in this light, coaching, whatever, then you have to look at it from that point of view too, from a strategy point of view, as to how you're using this content you're giving out to people, how you're using this, where you're heading with it, I guess is what I'm really trying to say. Cause I didn't always know where I was heading with it. And I would hope, just want to share this with you, because so you don't end up wandering around in circles and wondering, where am I, what is this? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? I just want you to have a different experience and not waste a lot of time and maybe get frustrated and not stop doing what you love, excuse me, because you think, oh, this isn't heading anywhere, but because you didn't really understand to put a plan around it or a strategy around what you're doing so that now you really are getting what you deserve and your content's being valued and you're sharing valuable content with others, so it's not just a one-sided thing, that it's, you're also getting what you want to get out of it as well. That's really why I, was really enthusiastic to share this information with you. I, made a lot of mistakes, but, all of it, I think, helps you to learn as you go. So, Kerry, is there anything more you'd like to share on this topic, do you think, or?
Well, I think just, some closing thoughts on this is I really feel that, think about your goals, why you're wanting to speak, what you want to speak on. Sit down and really develop that. Work on that, work on a topic, and then once you, and then figure out what your game plan is. Is it just to get additional exposure for the business? Are you wanting to do this professionally? Do you want to get paid for speaking? Are you willing to do it for free? There's so many different things that you've got to figure out. No one can figure that out but you. So you got to sit down and take some time and think about it. And then make a game plan. Where are your ideal clients? Start calling, those networking groups or chambers or associations and get yourself out there and start promoting yourself, because with speaking, as we both know, sometimes speakers are booked out a couple of months in advance, but most of the time it's at least a year or more. So you need to think about that too. It doesn't happen right away, and it could also be great to build up that potential, the list you've got, list building exercise. You just have to think about what are your goals with this and what are you trying to accomplish, and present yourself accordingly at that point.
I totally agree. If you get all that together first, even before you, before you jump out there, then that will be a help. And even if you're not sure where you're heading, just a game plan just to start with. And then the decisions that you make, you may feel a lot better about them. And then you'll have a plan in place as to where you want to be, who you want to get in front of, and why you want to get in front of them. And I think from then on, that should help you as you go forward. I think we've covered the important points for everyone to know if it's something if this is something you're considering. I think hopefully this has helped you to get an idea of what you want to do going forward. And of course, if you have any questions, please, let us know. Kerry again is at www.strictlymarketingmagazine.com, and also the blog for this show is womenentrepreneursecrets.com. If you have any other questions or even suggestions for any topics you'd like to hear about, that is great too. So I guess once again, it's been Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host Deborah Bailey and Kerry Heaps. So thank you so much for joining us again, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. You can also join in the conversation on Facebook.com/Women Entrepreneurs and on the website WomenEntrepreneursSecrets.com. And don't forget to listen in on dvcoach.podomatic.com and on iTunes.